Today I am going to present chapter 5 of sericulture, part C. This is sericulture rearing technique. Now in rearing technique, rearing is a tedious process and it includes following steps: procurement of seeds, brushing, maintenance of optimum temperature and humidity, feeding the larvae, bed cleaning and hygiene, spacing of larvae, care while molting, mounting of mature worms, harvesting of cocoons. Now, first one is procurement of seeds. Good quality, disease-free seeds can be obtained from government or private granages producing pure or hybrid races. So this is the egg sheet which we procured from Government Sericulture Institute Y, Maharashtra, India. Next step is brushing. So brushing is defined as the process by which newly hatched larvae are separated from eggshells and transferred to the rearing bed. Hatching of eggs is a photoperiodic response and occurs in first half of day. Usually all the eggs should be exposed to equal amount of sunlight so that they will hatch at the same time. Appropriate time of brushing is around 10 a.m. If the eggs hatch with a gap of 2 days, then they should be reared separately. Now, methods of brushing. So, brushing from loose eggs and brushing from egg cards. If you want to brush eggs from loose eggs, then cloth or net method is used. And when you are brushing it from egg cards, then feather method, husk method, net, cloth method is used. Now, first is brushing from loose eggs. So, we are using cloth or net method. So you can see here the chopped mulberry leaves is sprinkled over the net or muslin cloth. The net or muslin cloth along with the leaves is placed above the eggs. Hatched larvae crawl up through the mesh and come up on the leaves. Then the net along with the hatched larvae and the leaves is removed. Same can be shown diagrammatically where the chopped leaves are placed on the mesh having holes, and on that leaves are placed, and then the whole thing is placed on the loose eggs. Then the hatched larvae are removed. Now next is brushing from egg cards. In this, the first method is feather method. So egg cards are held vertically on the rearing bed. The rearing bed which is having chopped fresh leaves. Larvae separated by gentle strokes of feather. Then the hatched larvae fall on the rearing bed with leaves. The same you can see here, this is a egg sheet. On that hatched larvae are there. A feather is taken and slowly with gentle strokes of the feather, the larvae are shifted to the rearing tray. Now brushing from egg cards. Husk method. Here husk is sprinkled over the egg sheet. Chopped leaves is placed above the husk. Hatched larvae crawl up on the leaves. Then the feather is used to transfer the hatched larvae on the rearing bed having fresh mulberry leaves. Okay, the same can be explained diagrammatically. You can see here a husk is added on the egg sheet. On it chopped leaves is also added. Then the hatched larvae will come up. They are brushed using a feather into the rearing tray. Then brushing from egg cards, third method is net or cloth or paper method. So here chopped mulberry leaves is sprinkled over the net or muslin cloth. Then over that leaves are placed. Then the whole muslin cloth or net cloth along with the leaves is placed above the eggs. The larvae crawl up through the mesh and come over on the leaves. Then the net is removed along with the larvae and the leaves and it is transferred to the rearing bed. Now, maintenance of optimum temperature and humidity. This is very important parameter. Optimum temperature and humidity is needed for proper growth of the larvae and for getting good quality cocoon. If temperature is more, humidity decreases and the leaves dry up. The larvae do not feed on such dried leaves and they starve. If humidity increases, it causes diseases, especially fungal diseases such as muscardine, aspergillosis, etc. In large establishments, heaters, humidifiers are used to regulate temperature and humidity. But small farmers, they use charcoal stoves to increase the temperature and wet gunny bags to increase humidity. In rainy season, doors and windows must be kept open to reduce humidity. Now, we will see the table showing temperature and relative humidity needed by different larval stages. So first larval in star needs around 26 to 28 degrees centigrade temperature and 85% relative humidity. Okay, as they progress towards the second instar, third instar, fourth instar, and finally fifth instar, the temperature requirement decreases. By the time they reach the fifth instar, temperature requirement is around 23 to 24 degrees centigrade, and relative humidity also decreases to 70%. Now, feeding the larvae. Feeding the larvae is also very important task and has to be done very meticulously. Quantity of feed. The amount of leaf that you feed to the larvae depends upon the race, instar, and molting time. So if it is a univoltine or bivoltine race, then they need more food compared to multivoltine races. If you see the instar, first, second, and third instar consume less food, but the fourth and fifth instar larvae consume almost 85% of the total feed. If the feed given is less, if you give less quantity of leaves, then it will be inadequate and you will have unequal worms, which is not good. If you see molting, before molting, the larvae eats very less. During molting, it stops feeding. And after molting, it feeds actively, voraciously, gregariously. Then frequency of feeding. 4 feedings are given per day in India: 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. 3 feedings are given in case of shoot and floor rearing. That is because in case of shoot and floor rearing, we give whole branch or whole shoots and the leaves do not dry up fast. So you can decrease 1 feed. Quality of leaves. Usually young larvae feed on soft succulent leaves with more moisture content. Mature larvae are given leaves which are mature, have less moisture and more nutrients. One should avoid giving diseased, dusty and coarse leaves. Now first and second instar larvae are fed with chopped leaves. These are the chopped mulberry leaves. Entire shoot can be given to the fourth and fifth instar larvae because they are able to digest even the mature leaves. Now, how to cut the leaves? In case of dry weather, the leaves are chopped into square shape so that when the leaves dry and roll up, the larvae will not get stuck inside it. In humid condition, the leaves are chopped in rectangular shape. When you have to give large amount of feed, then the leaves are cut in triangular fashion because it is easy to cut in that way. Leaves are usually piled on the chopping board. The chopping board is kept on a mat, on a clean mat, and then it is cut with sharp chopping knife. Now, next point is bed cleaning and hygiene. This is again very important to prevent the spread of diseases. Periodic removal of unconsumed and dried leaves mixed with fecal matter and excreta of larvae which is unfit for feeding from the rearing bed is called as bed cleaning. It is necessary to prevent the growth of microorganisms. If bed cleaning is not done on time, then fermentation of leaves occurs and along with the excreta, it leads to death of the worms. Now, frequency of bed cleaning. How many times bed cleaning should be done? So usually for first instar, once before molting, second instar twice, once before molting and once after molting. For third instar thrice before molting, uh, after molting and in between. For fourth and fifth larvae, it has to be done once if it is shelf rearing. And for all larval stages, if you are going for shoot rearing, then only once bed cleaning is sufficient. Now, what are the different methods of bed cleaning? So bed cleaning can be done by husk method, net method, combination of net and husk method, and conventional method. So cleaning with husk, first method. So husk is sprinkled over the rearing bed to be cleaned. Chopped leaves are placed above the husk as first feed. The larvae crawl up on the leaves, and during the second feed, they are again transferred into another rearing bed. Cleaning with net, this is the second method. So cotton or nylon net is placed over the rearing bed. Fresh leaves are placed on the net. Because of the smell of the fresh leaves, the larvae crawl up through the mesh and come over on the leaves. The net is removed along with the worms and the fresh leaves and is transferred into a new tray. The third method is combined husk and net method. So here paddy husk is spread over the rearing bed. Then suitable size mesh net is placed over the rearing bed. Two successive feeds can be given on the net. The larvae along with the net is transferred to another rearing tray. Okay, so here also the same thing. Once you give the feed, the larvae will come up on the net. So it is very easy to transfer them to another rearing tray. Then conventional method. So in this method, what is done is larvae are brushed with feather or picked by hand. They are transferred to the new rearing bed. They are spread by chopsticks. So in this method, there are chances of injury and mortality is there, increases. Now spacing of the larvae. As the larvae are gregarious feeders, they feed almost 25 to 30 times their body weight. They grow very fast. So there should be sufficient space for them in the rearing tray. So we should provide more space to the growing worm. So this is called as spacing. 80 to 100 times spacing is required from hatching to fifth instar. So this table shows the space required for different instar larvae. So for first instar, 0.8 meters square. And as you move on to the second, third, fourth, and fifth instar, where in the fourth and fifth instar, if you see, growth is almost 25 times, and spacing required also increases to 10 meters square, and then finally 20 meter square. Now care during molting. Now molting is a very important part of growth of silkworm. The process of wriggling out of the old skin by the larvae and emergence with a new loose skin, bigger in size, is called as molting or ecdysis. Now, being tetramolders, the larvae molt 4 times in their life. Molting may last for 15 to 30 hours. 3 stages can be noted: pre-molting, molting, and post-molting. Now, precautions to be taken during molting. During pre-molting stage, the bed is cleaned, wide space is provided with less quantity of feed, because in pre-molting stage, the larvae eat very less food. Worms with small head, stout and shining body with small sized head are ready to molt. Precautions during molting. During the pre-molting stage, bed is cleaned and wider space is provided with less quantity of feed, because in pre-molting stage, larvae feed very less food. Worms with small head, stout and shining body are ready to molt. So such worms are transferred to clean and dry rearing beds. Such larvae stop feeding, migrate to the dry corner of the bed, hold its body vertically upwards and wriggle out of its old skin. Lime powder should be sprinkled in the bed to keep it dry, because lime powder is hygroscopic. It also acts as a disinfectant. One should use disinfectants like Resham Kid Aushad, which is developed by Central Sikh Research and Training Institute, Mysore, or one can use Labex, which is prepared by Central Sikh Research and Training Institute, Berhampur, to reduce Grassery and Muscardine diseases. It also facilitates uniform molting. If there is unequal molting, then they are separated from the rest to a new rearing bed. So the large worms are separated from the small worms. Newly molted worms will have a large head, loose and less shining skin. They feed voraciously. Now, mounting of the mature worms. Mounting of mature worms has to be done very judiciously. The transferring of ripe worms to the mount edges, such as Chandrika, for spinning the cocoons under optimum conditions, is called as mounting. Now, how to identify ripe worms or mature worms which you want to mount? The fifth instar fully grown larvae is ready to spin cocoon and is called as the ripe worm. It is usually translucent in color because the gut is empty. Usually the worm is green in color because of the leaves that are present in its gut. But the mature worm vomits out everything and stops feeding and appears translucent in color. A constriction appears at fourth and fifth segment. The worms stop feeding and move towards dry edges of the rearing tray. So this will give an idea that the worms are ripe and ready to spin cocoon. Now, how should you pick the ripe worms and mount them? Okay, so different mounting methods are there. Hand picking method. So here the worms are picked manually by hand and transferred to the dry uh, chandrika. The second method is simultaneously mounting. So here whole worm from the tray are put on the chandrika or the mountage, and they move from there and start spinning the cocoon. So in this method, the drawback is that you will have large worms, mature worms, immature worms all at the same time, and those worms which are green will excrete on the cocoons that is being woven or spun by the mature larvae. The net method, here a net is spread over the rearing tray. Mature larvae come up over the net and they are picked up, and along with the net they are put on the mountage or chandrika. And in branch method, a branch is spread on the rearing tray. Mature worms, they come on the branch and the branch is taken and it is slowly jerked on the cocoonage or chandrika for the worms to fall down. Now, precautions during mounting. Now, when you are mounting on the chandrika, in the mounting room, the temperature should be 24 degrees centigrade. Humidity should be 60 to 70. Proper ventilation and dry conditions should be there. This is very important because if the temperature and humidity is not optimum, then the larvae will not spin good cocoon. It will not spin good quality cocoon. The luster and shine of the silk filament will also be of low quality. So these optimum conditions are very important. Avoid disturbing the worms, because if you disturb the worm, it will stop spinning for some time and then again start. So you will get discontinuous silk fiber. Mountage should be always washed, dried and disinfected before use and after harvesting of the cocoon, so that if any diseased condition has been left before, it will be disinfected and our new larvae and pupa will not be infected. Do not mount green immature larvae because they will keep on moving here and there and they will excrete on the good cocoons. They may even attach to the cocoon and start spinning there, and you will get double cocoon, which is useless. Now, harvesting of cocoons. Obtaining fully formed cocoons from the mountages or cocoonages such as chandrika is called as cocoon harvesting. Now, harvesting time is very important. After the pupal cuticle has hardened and before the emergence of the adult moth. So that is the correct time for harvesting, because if the pupal cuticle is not hardened, then while handling it will get crushed and it will get stained. And if you harvest it after the emergence of adult moth, then it will be a pierced cocoon, which is of no use, right? So the recommended time, fifth day for tropical varieties and eighth or ninth day for temperate varieties. Delay in harvesting gives pierced cocoon, while early harvesting leads to soiled cocoons. Now, harvesting method. Usually the most common method used in India is hand picking method. In Japan, simple devices are used to harvest cocoons from large rotary mount edges. Thank you.